The amount of horses that are neglected and not taken care of correctly is unforgivable.
I didn't really know there was rescues like this until I saw those starved horses, and then I looked it up to see what we could do.
What I saw was one of the most horrendous sights I've ever seen in 28 years in law enforcement.
Investigators discovered dead horses and cats and dozens more sickly animals.
Rescue groups from as far away as Maryland lined up trailers Tuesday on the dirt driveway.
We have been tagging them, those that need immediate care.
They are all pretty much skin and bones. Horrific is really the word that comes to mind.
Maya Prue founded Hope's Legacy to rescue horses. The Afton-based nonprofit is now caring for 24 horses and a mini donkey taken from this Orange County farm.
It's going to be a tough situation to deal with. The very first horse that I got when I was 11 was a horse that had been dumped at a boarding stable. I've pretty much always had at least one rescue horse at a time. Eventually I just decided I wanted to do it on a larger scale and be able to help more horses than I could personally.
So, the donkeys are in that field.
Okay. The main difference in dealing with a healthy horse versus one that's been abused or neglected is that we have to be a little more careful because we don't know how they're going to react to things. Horses can always be unpredictable to a certain level, and we frequently do not know anything about the history of these horses when they come in. Even with animal control seizures, their history starts with day one when they arrive. So we don't know what they've been through, and it's always a guessing game to figure out.
I can't imagine what that feels like for that poor thing to walk.
I can explain why she's a little more nervous.
Right.
They're really incredible animals, and whatever time and energy you put into them, you get back, for the most part. We'll have the vet out in the next couple of days, and we're going to do some x-rays of her feet, and then we'll have the farrier out and get her feet trimmed. It'll probably take a couple of times to get them back to where they need to be.
You be nice to her.
We're going to pregnancy check her because apparently she was turned out with a jack for about 3 months. We're also going to just do some blood work and make sure that, other than being thin, everything is well with her. And then at that point, we will start looking for a home to see if we can find her somewhere to spend the rest of her life just hanging out and being a happy donkey. Since Hope's Legacy began in 2008, we've taken in roughly 150 horses, and we've adopted out about 95 of those, I believe. The process to make a horse adoptable is really tailored for each specific horse. Whether it's health-related rehab or behavioral rehab, do we need to send them to a trainer? Are they ready to go right away? Do they have any special needs? Figure out what they're best suited for, if they're going to be a good trail horse, or if they have potential as a show horse, or a fox hunter, or anything like that. It's like she is scared to death of people, so she just needs people to hang out in her stall with her, feed her cookies, pet her as much as you can, that sort of stuff. If we determine that they have training issues or behavioral issues that my volunteers can't deal with, we have a great network of trainers in the area that we work with.
When we get a new horse in here, we start them as if they know nothing and work forward, and they tell us what they know and what they need to work on. So some horses come in and they already know how to lead, and they know how to be mounted, and they know how to back up. Some horses come in and they don't know how to have a saddle put on. We have a process that teaches them basic skills, and we put them through those steps and they advance accordingly. Some horses take longer because you're working through fear and anxiety issues. It really just depends on the horse and their previous experience.
He was one of the horses that had been doused with kerosene, and I think they used a spray bottle to do it. Yeah. Jamaica just came to his new foster home, and we just want to get him on a good path in his new foster home. So I'm here today doing some groundwork with him and Brooke, and teaching her the program that he's been on at our farm. I go really close and take my hand and rub it, and eventually, yeah, you can see it just coming. I know. settles. Okay, what are the signals of submission?
So head down, relaxed, a relaxed position, and back pluff kind of up.
The big one is when they start
Mouth.
licking their lips.
Yeah.
The horse is like, I'm understanding, I'm relaxed, I get it. A horse can feel a fly land on them, so they can feel the second you get a little tense. So we want to give him every opportunity to be a good boy, which means you have to be confident and loose and supple so he can be confident, loose, and supple. Good. He's licking his lips. He understands. That's good.
Hope's Legacy is so important because they stick up for these animals. They speak for them and they nurse them back to health. They put them through a training program and they make sure that they are homed properly.
It's a 90-day trial period. It begins on today.
The financial resources it takes to rehab some of these horses and then maintain them is more than a lot of people think.
It really depends on age, general health, and what condition they come in.
Whether she has an inflammatory bowel disease or an infiltrative bowel disease, we would probably treat her the same way.
Okay.
Which would be with steroids.
Okay. The horses that come in pretty good condition probably only average about $2 or $3 a day for care. The horses who come in severely emaciated or with some sort of health or hoof issue, they're probably more in the $10 to $15 a day expense range. And usually after a couple of months, we can get that down.
So this is the condition when animal control removed her.
I've been working with Hope's Legacy for over 5 years now. We've had a lot of abuse cases lately, and Hope's Legacy played a really important role in rescuing and rehabilitating these horses.
What's this donkey's name?
Ivy.
Ivy.
Oh, there, for the X-ray. I'll see if my nippers are sharp enough.
Okay.
Her feet were in really terrible shape. She has foundered quite a few times.
Oh, she has an abscess.
Yeah, that could
See all that
be
black
part of
goo
the
coming out there?
Yeah.
Looks like the hoof is growing out sort of in 2 layers.
It is, yeah.
She's not been handled, so when we try to handle her, it's a little exciting at times.
I don't think she's going to stand on those blocks.
That's gross.
Do you have another set of hands for me? There you go. So you see she does have some laces here. These 2 dark areas in her bone, and she's got a lot of remodeling. But her coffin bone is still intact. It's not resorbing too much, so that's good.
The vet thinks that we can get her comfortable as far as being out in the pasture. Being a donkey, it's not like she needs to be a performance animal. We did also, during that exam, discover that Ivy is in fact pregnant, and we are expecting a baby donkey in about 8 months. The hardest part of my job is when somebody calls and they've lost their job and they can no longer afford their horse. If we don't have the space or the funds ourselves, we cannot take that horse in, because I can't put the horses we already have in the rescue at risk by taking in too many horses. I would say on average I probably turn away about 5 horses a week.
That's not edible. That's not edible.
Prior to October 19th, 2015, I would have said that our maximum number was 15 horses, but when we got 29 horses in from the Peaceable Farm case, that totally changed the face of the rescue.
Orange County Sheriff's deputies found more than 100 abused horses and a large number of mistreated dogs and cats at Peaceable Farm Monday. 3 vets joined sheriff's deputies, evaluating the emaciated animals one at a time.
Some we found dead. It's rather devastating.
We got there about 8 o'clock that Monday night, and there was no power in the barn, so the only light when we arrived was on the tractor that they were using to lift the bodies of the dead horses into the dumpster. I had 2 volunteers with me, and we went into the barn and met a couple of other volunteers. They were in the barn getting halters on pretty much walking skeletons. The smell will never, ever go away.
And then we've been tagging them with different color tags, and that's how we keep track of the animals.
The red tags were the horses that the vets felt would not survive if they were not removed from the property that day. The yellow tags were the horses that needed to get off of the property urgently, but would probably survive the night. And then the green tags were the horses that needed to be removed just because the situation was so terrible, but they weren't in imminent danger. That first night, we got all 7 red tag horses that were in the barn. There was one that was out in the field that we were not able to locate because it was a 100-acre pasture, and there were roughly 90 horses out in the field. The vets were spot on. That horse went down overnight and had to be euthanized the next morning. Of the 7 red tag horses that we got, 5 of them did not survive. The 2 that survived of the red tags were Donkey and Gentleman, and they both are thriving and doing wonderfully.
I think by October he'll definitely be like 100% ready to go out to somebody.
We've actually been struggling to get weight on him because he's such a nervous horse. He weaves, so when anything stresses him out, he just stands there and dances back and forth. And I just stand and watch him and count calories as he burns them. He has more personality than pretty much any horse I've ever met.
He's a miracle to me. I mean, he shouldn't be alive, but he is. It's definitely a warming feeling every time you see him running out in the field with his females. He loves them.
A Donkey is actually going to stay with us. He's going to be our mascot. He's got some residual health issues because of the severity of his neglect from that situation, so we just decided it was safer. Plus, I've totally fallen in love with him and can't bear to part with him. He got me through that whole situation. Every time we had to euthanize another horse, I'd go in and sit with him and just hang out with him. Even our vets would go in and hang out with him. Everyone was so invested in these horses. Part of the reason that I started Hope's Legacy was because there was not much in the way of resources for people who needed somewhere for their horses to go, or for animal control officers if they seized horses. Very few counties in Virginia have the facilities to be able to house horses themselves, so they either have to rely on private individuals or rescues. To keep Hope's Legacy growing in a sustainable manner, it requires a 3-way balance of money, space, and people. If we have people and space but not enough money, we can't take in any more horses. By the same factor, if we have the space and the money but not enough volunteers, then we cannot take in any more horses. We try to grow all of those 3 things at the same time, but it doesn't always happen. In fact, just this year we've had to do pretty much a full relocation twice.
Hope's Legacy Equine Rescue is in urgent need of money to buy a new farm. The Nelson County nonprofit recently lost its lease on a property in Afton. Its horses now live on different farms in Albemarle and Nelson counties.
Which is a large part of the reason why we kicked off this capital campaign.
The $1 million capital campaign will go toward a new farm, fencing, and a barn. The organization already knows which property it wants to buy in the Afton area. It's just a matter now of raising the money to do so.
When we have to relocate the rescue, we have to move all of our equipment, our supplies, our hay, all of the horses. It takes a lot of volunteers, a lot of trucks and trailers, and I've got one volunteer especially who's fabulous at organizing, and she gets everything in place for us. Having a permanent home would ensure a safe and secure future for Hope's Legacy. We would not have to say no as frequently. We would still have the limitation of funds, of course, but it would enable us to provide an even better safety net for the horses that we do take in.
It's a huge financial responsibility to take on just one horse, but when you have a barn full of horses, it is very time intensive, labor intensive. It's a huge operation, and Hope's Legacy mostly is run by volunteers.
We appreciate anything that volunteers are able to give, but every little bit counts. They can do anything from just doing fundraising events to coming out every day and feeding and grooming or mucking stalls. A lot of our horses come in with little socialization, so that's a big part of their rehabilitation, is just kind of spending time with the horses and getting them used to humans.
Good girl. I know it's a new person, that's just good.
just standing there and being present and talking to them, it helps over time.
But yeah, she was in with
a lot of our best volunteers have come to us with no experience, and as long as they're willing to learn and take direction, it ends up being a great situation.
I volunteered with Hope's Legacy because of Taylor. It was something that she wanted to do, so we just decided to do it as a family. I was going to be there anyway because I had to bring her, so just thought I might as well start learning about the horses and seeing what I could do to help as well. I had not had any horse experience before starting with Hope's Legacy, but I've learned a lot, and there's certainly so many things that you can do. And you can do like I do, come in and work with other volunteers who are very experienced and learn about the horses and what needs to be done.
Within the community, you can donate, volunteer, foster. We are foster-based. 75% of our horses are at foster homes, which is a huge help for us.
I definitely think it's like something that everybody should experience at least once. To see him go from nothing and then to now.
When one of the horses gets adopted, it is mission accomplished. It's what we all are working so hard for. This is the whole idea of the rescue altogether, is to rehome them, take horses that have no purpose in life and turn them into magnificent horses that are happy and have a job and have an owner that loves them.
We had looked at other facilities and had been unable to find a suitable horse, and found Jamaica, who works for us, and we think that he'll just be beautiful here. So we're excited.
Adopting a horse from Hope's Legacy is a special experience. You get to hear, in some cases, the background that these horses have come from, and it's amazing that these horses have overcome such difficulties.
The best part of my job are things like Amber's adoption. Amber came to us severely emaciated, covered in lice. I've never seen a horse with as many lice as she had. And I had this wonderful family volunteering with me, and the daughter, Taylor, absolutely fell in love with Amber.
I worked with her and I got her fat-ish. We worked on that. We groomed a lot and just rode her and got the muscle back on her.
Taylor actually thought that we were going to be sending Amber to a foster home in Northern Virginia, and they drove by the field one day, and she actually said to her parents, "Even though she was never really mine, Amber will always be my first horse." On Christmas Eve, I went and put Amber in a stall, and about 4 o'clock on Christmas morning, Taylor's father came out and decorated the stall. Later that morning, after they opened presents, they told Taylor that they were going to be going to the barn to feed the horses apples and carrots. And when they got there, there was a huge gift tag on Amber's stall. And Taylor started crying, and Keena started crying, and my volunteers who were there feeding horses that morning started crying. It was wonderful.
Amber's life, she's very spoiled. She likes to have everything her way, but I think it's a good life. She likes to have a job, which is riding. I think she likes it.
Being able to match a horse up with somebody who absolutely loves and adores them and wants to spend time with them and share their lives with them is the whole purpose of Hope's Legacy.
That's one of the coolest things about working in horse rescue, is seeing, especially the severe neglect cases, seeing their transformation over time. They've been mistreated by humans, and they still come back, and they trust you. Maya has always had a passion for horses her whole life, and I think knowing that she's helping these horses in such a significant way is really what keeps her getting up in the morning and coming to feed and going to get more horses.
My non-riding friends could never understand why I would want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go to a horse show. And getting up for school was difficult, but getting up to go to a show or fox hunting was really easy.
She has a full-time job aside from this, but she is really dedicated to these horses and the well-being.
I don't have a lot of time to ride anymore. Just spending time with the horses is what I enjoy even more than the riding portion. I stay focused on the mission and keep going because of all of the success stories that we do have, all of the donkeys and the gentlemans and the other survivors, all of the horses that go through these situations and then get adopted to wonderful homes. That's what keeps me going.
She's standing in a mud puddle area.